Okay. Um, Welcome everybody to the Board of Trustees workshop. It's February 10th, 2026. Get a motion to open the meeting. Trustee Rosenberg, second, trustee Rothrock, Faber. We have 5 people here. We have Donna Asuma, trustee Asuma at home. Was noticed properly. She voted to open the meeting. She's still raising her hand. And we anticipate Jessica Galen, Deputy Mayor Galen, is gonna join us shortly. She had a health issue, and so she is calling in on Zoom.
Oh, there she is.
There she is. All right. So let's start with EV charging stations, the pricing. So we're just kicking off this discussion because we have. Rob, can you talk about what we have coming, what the EV stations are that we have coming, when we can anticipate them coming, and why we need to come up with this rate?
Sure, Mayor, thanks. Welcome and good evening. Yeah, the first item in front of you for the EV charging stations, the first answer is we have 32 charging stations throughout the village. I think there's 22 down at the waterfront, 8 at Village Hall, and 2 on Main Street. Check my math, but anyway, we've went back and forth with the county 4 times. We've only got the signed contract, so that's sent in a few weeks ago. Right now, this exercise, Hastings did a little bit of research, checking in on the Con Ed rates, and as Jeff mentioned before, we're also talking about we have to take into account the NIPA rates also, because we have 2 sets of electric energy prices. So we do have to actually drill down to see where Hastings got their numbers from. I've been just accepting them outright. So it takes a little bit more time to actually analyze those numbers. It looks like they're in range, but we're not sure about the exactness of those quoted numbers. So we need a little bit more time to actually analyze those numbers.
It seems to me that there's some modeling that we need to do also, because, you know, there's this maintenance charge that I'm not sure we were completely aware of what that was. When we said, yeah, give us all the EV chargers you can give us. So, and that has to be priced into the power costs if we're gonna pass that on to the users. And as the Hastings memo points out, you know, they've got, you know, 2 charger or 1 charger with 2 lines right now, and it's 100% utilized. But we can't assume that we're gonna have 100% utilization on all these 30X chargers, especially down at the train station where somebody's gonna plug in the morning, be gone for the rest of the day, and you're gonna get 1 top off a day per charger. So we really have to think about you know, different scenarios around how, like, what our average utilization is for across all of these chargers, so that we can figure out, in addition to the cost of the electricity, how we amortize the maintenance costs. Or we can decide we're just gonna eat those and provide this as a service. I think it's a lot of money for 32 stations for us to want to eat, but that's, talk about that too. But I think we need to get a spreadsheet going that sort of models, you know, I think the use case for the train station is gonna be a lot different than the use case for Village Hall, where I can see a lot, you know, overnights, which is gonna be different from quick in and outs on parking on Main Street, where it'll be a few minutes at a time, maybe. We also talked about making these things not EV only, which means that when there's not an EV in that spot using the charger, that charger is creating no revenue to pay back the maintenance costs. I think when we had first conceptualized this, it was just the electricity that we had to think about, which was a pretty easy calculation. But now it calls for some real business forecasting.
Is that in any of the paperwork we had so far about maintenance?
Well, the county does suggest that we include all those things as Matt mentioned, because we're trying to break even, we're not trying to make money.
Right.
in New Rochelle. They actually had a year or so of free meters just to get interest in the program, to gauge, just to Matt's point, where the usage is, how much it is. And I think there are cases out there that say any car that's parked there charging still gets you get the fee to park in addition to charge fees. But as soon as you're fully charged, all of a sudden there's another tack on $2 or whatever it was. I think we found a couple of municipalities that actually did that.
But your question is, did we know what the maintenance fees were gonna be before we accepted the number of? No, we did know we would be responsible for it, but no one ever gave us
Numbers.
like a dollar figure. It's higher than what I thought. I don't think we were expecting
Yeah, it's
that
over
amount.
$13,000 a year. per
Yeah,
patient.
we probably could have figured that out ahead of time, just knowing what we know about our own. But what you're saying indicates that
But that's the energy cost,
that
not.
we just need, like, this has to be happening everywhere, right? So there's gotta be a lot of information about how people are solving this problem, we're not unique in it. And then, but you know, whatever, Dobbs is gonna be a little different than another community, we need some kind of data to
Right.
assess
Yeah.
year to year and make an adjustment, just like we do with a lot of other fees. And maybe we just decide that we're gonna charge for electricity, but not for maintenance, year one, and see how that, or charge some amount that's a guesstimate based on
Yeah.
the ones we
Well,
have.
it'll definitely be a
Then adjust each
guesstimate
year.
because, you know, we don't have historical data, like, so, but I guess, and you're right, we should look at, you know, what other, sort of similarly situated towns are doing. There's still gonna be we can't actually, you know, realistically, we can't expect somebody to park at the train station, be done charging in 3 hours, and then tack on $2 an hour, fees after that, because, you know, it's unrealistic.
It's not
to think that it's gonna come
reasonable.
home. So, we definitely have to, do research. Somebody has to do research. If not, somebody on the staff, I'm happy to do that research and come back.
I
But,
think the
you know,
key from the
come up with a
discussion is to
forecast.
know what the questions are that you want answered based on what they did already in Hastings and, that's it.
Are
So,
these
and how
maintenance
many-
fees that Hastings has, are these the same maintenance fees that we will potentially have?
I'd have to analyze what they did. I can't vouch for what they refer to. I know the county, basically, there was a program. The maintenance is included as far as I knew for the first year or two. And then after that, if you wanted the program, even if some of the engineers were advising against it because these are new machines and that it didn't make sense to actually, if there's something needed to be replaced, it wasn't worth the cost of having like an insurance policy for maintenance. I don't know what they define as their maintenance, is replacing them if they get hit.
Well, some of our maintenance in the past has been, some jerk went back there and cut the wire off, right? So, you know, there's maintenance that a new machine shouldn't need. And then there's like, you know, cost of having some jerks in there. So, you know, but maybe that's a matter for our insurance rather, but
They're made.
but we need to know what those costs are, so we can model scenarios with and without. Those costs at, you know, whether we're gonna park it back 100% down to 0%, like. It's an easy spreadsheet to conceptualize. It's just a question of like, who's filling it in.
Well, I should just say that however it gets filled in, my take is that we should charge the user the 100% of that cost.
Yeah.
So, you know, just like any other type of fuel source, it's not subsidized by a municipality, and so I don't think we should do
I
that.
agree.
If it's been short cut that we get hit with a few extra dollars because we underestimated, that's fine.
Yeah.
That'll
I agree, and I think the rationale is if we started at 0 and later decided to charge for it, that would be a massive price hike, and I'd rather, and turn people off. I would rather like start at, you know, reasonable and adjust within the margins of also reasonable. And that means doing as Michael suggested in like, and intending to start off with covering the maintenance costs.
Miss Trustee, Miss Deputy Mayor Galen has her hand up. So,
Two other factors I think that could argue or I do want to see the, you know, what the actual break-even rate would be, or what we would anticipate it being. But I also think that having this number of EV chargers does meet two of the goals that we have in our annual goals, which are around sustainability and around economic development, in terms of bringing folks to Dobbs Ferry who might get off the Sawmill or who might get off something else if they know that we have EV chargers, or who might come park in our fabulous Metro North parking lot, which apparently we have. So I think, there could be some arguments if we felt like, whatever the break even point is seems quite high compared to other municipalities, there is an argument, I think, for, of course, we wouldn't subsidize a gas station, but I think that there's other things here that are at play. And I also think that knowing what Hastings is coming in at, and, we should also, part of that spreadsheet should be like, what's the Hastings number, what's the Irvington number, what's the Ardsley number, so that we're generally in line with those guys.
So I think I volunteered to make that spreadsheet. If Rob, if you can, just validate the maintenance cost numbers and send those to me, I can, by the, before our next meeting, I can have
I think between Jeff and Margaret, they could probably do it, so you don't.
I mean, we started looking at the numbers, we just didn't have it all together for something meaningful, for fruitful discussion, but cool. All these things should be identified.
I would be happy to sort of talk about scenarios with you to inform the making of that golden spreadsheet.
Donna, did you have something too? You're
You're muted.
muted.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I was just saying, which I am happy about, that it can be used for regular parking as well as charging. And downtown, I'm assuming there'd be a 2-hour limit. Is that right?
It'd be the regular parking.
Regular terms.
Regular terms.
Right, with the added advantage of electric, yes,
It's 3 now, isn't it?
It's 2+1.
2+.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And just,
I mean, it's a separate transaction, so yes.
Got it.
It's 3 in 2 parts.
Right.
and one other quick note, when I spoke to the county also, the question was raised whether the county was doing this universally for all 43 municipalities. Is everybody charging X number of cents per kilowatt hour? The answer was no, it's up to the municipalities to do their thing. And the only thing the county insisted on was that you don't have different rates between residents or non-residents. It has to be the same rate.
Yeah, well, there would be no practical way to even enforce that, so.
Well, I know other municipalities tried it.
I mean, the only way is that, you can have a parking sticker at the train station or not have a parking sticker at the train station and pay for it, but that's the only. There's no badge of residency that adheres to like a charge point, but
So it's kind of moot because they wouldn't allow just that.
All right, so we'll track down, we'll get a chart for what the neighbors do. And find out what our maintenance is gonna be, because I think that's the main thing that we don't have. And then see how we can get to that formula of covering it.
cool.
Okay. Next up is, all right, library, HVAC issues. Shall we get Erin? Hi.
Hello.
So we have this on as knowing that HVAC at the library has had a long-term, there's been concern about it
Yeah.
for some time, and as newly in this role, I would like, and I have not been on the board more than a year this time. I just wanted a full history of where we are and then what we might need to consider if we're going out for any kind of bonds, or if there's anything we need to consider investing.
Okay,
What's the scoop?
so I dug through old files and I found some history that someone else put together. I added a little bit more to it, just to give you an idea of how much and, how often things have been happening, as far as like compressors breaking. I mean, it is a long history. The original unit, or one of the original units, was, I mean, just in the wrong place, and then they had to add new units, and then they had to build a wall around it because of the noise. And then they had to take down the wall because it wasn't cool, the air was stuck in and it wasn't cooling right. And that's kind of, that's where we're at, where it's just, it's fumble after fumble, basically. Trying to get something to work right. I did talk with Jeff and Rob a little while ago, and I've been coming up with some other ideas, they talked about using the splits like you have here. It wouldn't work like building wide because it's there's a hole in between the first floor and second floor, and the second floor is a gymnasium, so you're not gonna have that, but having the splits, say in the children's room where it's typically warmer, and that's where one of the compressors needs to be replaced for in that area. But an area like that would actually work, I think, well, I don't know. I'm not an engineer, nor am I an HVAC mechanic or any of that, but that would be an area that we looked at for that. The other area for splits would be like my office and the conference room because they're smaller closed areas. That would also be like another area for splits. The other area that I would want something would be the reading room or the sunroom that looks over the patio, but it's all glass and you can't. I mean, there's one spot I think you could put like one of those.
Mhm.
You can make it work, but again, we'd have to talk to somebody about that.
In general, is it like the system that's there needs to be replaced or supplemented? Like
It needs
that,
to-
just like the baseline of what we're talking about.
And the original design, and Jeff, you can correct me, you've been here as well. The original design, the placement of the external compressors and materials and machines was not put on the roof. It was put in this other area for some reason.
So it
unbeknownst.
actually works,
And
it's just not in the.
It's just noisy, and so as a result, they've had these stopgap measures over the years and paid to do repairs rather than replacement.
This is a faulty design question, so it was put in a location that it can't cool properly.
That's right.
And so it runs too hot and it breaks down. That's why there's so much maintenance costs.
Yeah.
So what we did last year when we had this grant that came from the CEC, we ended up using the money for the DPW solar, is we looked into what it would take to completely replace the system at the library. That was a 7-figure plus number. It exceeded the grant by a significant amount. And we opted to use the money elsewhere. But I think, my question, I think that's important have we recently or the somewhat recent past had an engineer look at this, right? Because sometimes you go to the maintenance company, right? And everything looks like maintenance or replacements. And, we'll just fix this unit. We'll add the one here and you can get a little cooling. Maybe it's time for some kind of global assessment by.
I just wouldn't wanna just
mechanical
put a
engineer.
bunch of things, I mean, like the
Yeah,
problem at its core just needs to be fixed.
yeah.
And
No,
what does that take?
we could use somebody, so I wasn't in on the talks when I know it was Honeywell and the engineer was there that put together the 7-digit figure, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't really, like, they didn't include me in what they were talking about, and I think that was specifically for that. I think we can talk about other measures that we could do.
Yeah, and I think we should hire someone to look at it, mechanical engineering firm, to look at it, come up with some options for us,
Is it a mechanical engineer that would do that?
Yeah,
Yes.
long-term ideal solution is X, and we think that's gonna cost a certain amount of money, here's some other alternatives.
Yeah.
And then I think we can then you can start to assess whether it makes sense to, like Christie says, bond for some larger scope of project, or chip away little by little at some of these areas that
And
can be
whose
addressed.
fault is it that it was a perfectly good HVAC was placed in the wrong place that then?
I'm guessing the
Provides years of
architects and
money.
engineers that originally designed it.
Peter's still alive?
No.
Peter's full.
Peter's
No,
Not here to defend themselves.
No, you know, there was a firm in Hastings that did this work 20 years ago.
I mean, like, that's the thing, it's like, it's not that.
You know,
old.
it was it's a
And
design.
it's $300,000 in fixes for a
Well,
design for.
They've
We are, so the Ossining Library is the same age. They have a $30 million bond that they passed. They were closed for 2 days, but they were open, I think they were open today, but they were closed the last 2 days because they hadn't eaten. So we're not as bad, which is a good thing.
Sure, not as bad as.
Not as bad as us.
A new tagline.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, one thing about where the placement is and how it's set up is, so. There, you have, there's two separate things, right? There's the 4 big compressors and 2 small compressors. The 2 small compressors kind of exhaust this hot air. And the 4 big, or at least 2 of the intakes for those 4 big ones pull in that hot air. And the air that's there, like by midday with the sun coming down, we've done the temperature, it's over 200 degrees. And that's what they're trying to do, and that's why they're trying to break. And so there's,
I think they also did an analysis. I think it was actually Anthony that did an analysis when an interim administrator Lyons was here. And I think at that time it was brought to the board what the proposal was, and it was exorbitant. And I think that they opted to do the stopgap because they didn't have the money in the capital budget at that time to earmark it for this purpose. But I know there are files that, and you could probably ask Anthony to resurrect them and send them to you, because I know there was an analysis and a design estimate done when Administrator Lyons was here.
That would have been the 2021 3 compressor replacement.
That's
like at the
probably
bottom.
correct.
Okay,
And the number went up because the roof couldn't hold the units on the roof, so they had to redesign it on the bottom unless they did a lot of structural work.
Yes.
but I think
Just like
either,
you.
either Anthony had done this, I don't think he has to the extent that we're talking about. And maybe there's someone at AI, if not, we can find someone who could do this. I
Right, if
think
he's already
either-
started this or done a portion of it, then he can just build upon that, and then somebody else would.
One thing to consider, and this is from the Sustainable Dobbs folks, is that, you know, if there's gonna be a replacement, the more it can rely on electrical.
Yeah.
The better
That's the
for us.
energy code anyway, we gotta follow this.
But also, there's, they're always chasing climate smart communities points, and this, upgrading would be a help. So like some of the investment that goes into this might come back to us in easier grant money for other things too. So
Yep.
just impossible to forecast, but a consideration.
Jess and Donna, I keep forgetting to look at the TV. Do you guys have anything you want to bring?
No, but I'm glad we're addressing it. Like, is anything under warranty? Is anything?
No,
No, right?
Generation.
no.
I mean, what
Even,
these
even the
compressors
ones that
be
were
under
put in a
warranty
few
if those
years
bad
ago,
placement?
one of the ones that we just put in like a few years ago is dead now.
Great.
So I called the AC company that put them in, just to, just a shot in the dark to see if it was an under warranty, and it's not, so.
but even,
Yeah, it's also
even if it's
defects.
under warranty, if you put it in the wrong place, you void the warranty. So like, it's all, we would, if you put it in 6 months ago and the warranty's for 3 years, we
Yeah.
wouldn't get a warranty.
Because of the,
Yeah.
the hot air is now being sucked into the next round of
Yeah.
compressors, so it's just a placement.
So was like no HVAC company, I mean, I guess it was 20 years ago, like consulted when they were designing
They
this?
were, I'm sure they were, but in a design project, listen, I did a renovation in my house. My son's bedroom turns out to be freezing in winter because the run was too long. Like, there are things that you can't anticipate until they're in practice. Maybe that's one that they could have anticipated, but if they didn't build a strong enough roof and then they're trying to figure out the HVAC, they don't have a strong enough roof.
Is there a generator at the library?
No, we,
It's a
I
cooling
think Ned
center.
Ned was looking into it,
There's an issue.
but there's nowhere, there's nowhere to put a generator. I think the quote from the guy was, if we install this, you will all die of like carbon monoxide
Oh,
poisoning
no,
or
let's
something.
not have that.
Yeah.
How much did it cost?
As long as
So
it's
then
not
the
running, we're fine.
But
So
it
then
is
the
just
next step
either-
would be hiring an engineer, is that right?
Yes,
Yes, I think getting the records from Anthony and finding out if your existing engineering firm, AI, because they're quite extensive, they might have the expertise or not, and you know, you can get that information, and then otherwise you'll have to search for design services.
So Rob, would you ask him what he has? And
Sure.
then maybe circulate that, maybe if you could send that to me and ask him for an estimate
Right.
for, you know, if he hasn't done it, an assessment and, you know, some preliminary design and cost options.
Yeah, I'll have the, sure.
Great.
And then we can, if we want to check with someone else, we can get an alternative. Feedback.
All right, number 3, job prize. Valerie, would you like to come up and give us a quick wrap up of anticipated work for 2026?
Yeah, so,
You guys need things to do?
so some of the newer trustees, I'm Valerie Menastra, I work with Nelson Voorhees, and I'm the planning consultant for the
Is
village.
this the first time that you've been with? Have you
Yeah,
not met
I think so,
them?
and,
It's the first time.
Yeah.
Table or good?
You know Laura, don't you?
Yeah, I know, yes.
And Donna.
So, and yeah, so Valerie Menastra, I'm here tonight just to kind of talk a little bit about, the work that we already have on my plate for 2026 to kind of, and highlight, I was looking at some of the work that I anticipate potentially coming down the pike to assist the village board, and then just to kind of get any other comments or feedback from the board, if there's anything else that I should be focusing on. So just to kind of give a quick overview, we'll plan to finalize the comprehensive plan this year and complete the adoption process. We'll start developing zoning updates that would implement the comprehensive plan's recommendations. I don't anticipate that being completed within the zoning updates within 2026, but you know, most likely by within 2027. Then continue to work on, you know, any redevelopment projects that would potentially come before the village board, including the village-owned sites for the affordable housing projects. Also continue working with establishing the affordable housing program. This is really involves your inclusionary housing, working with Lori Lee Dixon and your building inspector on that, as well as the Affordable Housing Task Force. I met with them already on, you know, kind of updating them as to where things are with that. And then also I'm working with the village on the Gould Park request for qualifications. And then also working with the village on the emergency services and potential properties for consolidation. So that's a lot, but there's still a lot of other projects that the board has on their plate. So the village is about to get the New York Forward grant announcements, I would say within the next few months. So that is, you know, very shortly after that, you'll be getting contracts from the state, and you know, we can help you with some of that work in terms of putting together the request for proposals, dealing with some of the contract administration. If this is something that the village would be interested in, mostly because we worked on similar DRI and New York Forward grants for other communities that we represent. So just letting you know that I'm familiar with the process between that and the Department of State. And then, so happy to assist with that if there's anything that's necessary. But I also know there will be some additional community outreach, especially if you do end up doing some park, you know, upgrades, that we'd be happy to assist, whether that's through surveys or if you need us to help with some sort of like community engagement or put together boards or whatever, we're happy to assist with that as well. And then also in terms of additional CFA grants and stuff, you know, at some point in time, once you're finished through the comprehensive plan process and the zoning, you will need to update your local waterfront revitalization plan. So that's something that doesn't necessarily have to be done this year, but you're gonna wanna maybe try to seek some funding for that and get that covered, as opposed to something that this board needs to put
When
uh,
was it last updated?
Last updated back in 2010, 29, you know, 2009.
I think it was adopted as you see. it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been updated.
Hmm.
It was an initial adoption.
And that, I mean, when we get to that, but that was under like older goals, so this would be like a basically a revamp of your LWRP.
So is that something that we would be seeking for a grant this year?
Well, you could, I mean, they typically, if you do get awarded, if the grant application, you wouldn't even get into contract probably until 2027, and so you don't necessarily have to start right away, but that would get you aligned nicely, for potentially starting to work on that in 2028.
So.
Okay.
So,
Is there?
One of the things that you talked about, I think we need to maybe get on a future workshop, and that is just an update on the affordable housing project, because we are a year almost since we awarded Tierney the job, and we've seen them.
yes, we're happy
It's
to give
coming
you an
later this
update.
Meeting a little bit.
It is?
We
Oh,
move on.
awesome.
Yes.
Well, a little bit of an update. Then we have we moved our.
Oh, the liaison.
Liaison.
Okay. Awesome.
Correct. Okay, so if we have a retainer with you,
Yes,
right?
you do.
So what of these? How would it work? Like if we wanted to engage with you on the New York Forward projects, do we wait until they're awarded so that we know what it is that we're talking about? And
Yeah,
then we would ask you for an estimate, or it would be part of the retainer
So
or?
that could be, so most likely, I mean, a lot of that could probably be worked into the retainer.
Mhm.
Because we do have the retainer with you does allow us to have up to 24 hours a month on other planning work besides like planning board work. And then in addition to that, that if for some reason it does go over the 24 hours, that we can bill hourly, and then we give you like a 10% discount. So, but we can talk about that if for some reason there is a specific project that kind of comes forth
Becomes
throughout the year
overwhelming.
that really is becoming like a bigger project, then I'll definitely flag that. But for right now, I think a lot of this stuff can easily be worked into the retainer.
The 24 hours a month, but that excludes the comp plan. That's a separate.
That's correct.
Contract,
That's
and it
correct.
includes all the planning board related
correct.
assessments.
Yeah.
Those
So-
those are big tickets.
Yeah, that's why I'm making sure, because like 24, it doesn't sound like much.
No, but
Most
that,
of the planning board work is
Yeah,
covered by us.
Goes by it,
Okay.
yeah, and no, but I just want to make sure comp plan was a separate contract.
that's correct. Right, so this is all the other planning items before, and some of the projects, like say, for example, the affordable housing, Village Homes properties, eventually there will go into there will be an escrow office with the potential developer. So until then, that work is under the retainer, but then eventually that will shift, and so that will come off the retainer, and then that opens up more, so.
Because we're actively creating that inventory of these inclusionary units, and we're actively coordinating, making efforts to coordinate with the county, because the administration at some point in the past was assigned to the county for these, and we want to make sure that the county has this in their sites, and that they're picking up the certifications and managing the marketing as they're supposed to be doing.
I don't know of anything else beyond this right now.
Okay, that's fine, I just figured
Oh, Jessica does.
I was just curious, I assume this would fall into the 24-hour a month bucket. But if we had, I know I don't have anything specific to say at the moment, but I know there have been other kind of code changes we've discussed over the years that could help us get more of the outcomes that we're looking for as far as like economic development, or with regards to the wires, things like that. Are those just sort of ad hoc added to your bucket of ongoing projects?
Yeah, I mean, we can, so some of those, when we start coming back, very shortly, we'll be starting to come back for like the zoning, and I'm gonna say zoning and village codes, so we can have a conversation about, what other codes we might want to take a look at or revise as part of that process, so we can do that. Some of the zoning updates is already part of the comprehensive plan, and you also part of that budget, and you also received a grant last year for funding for the zoning updates as well through the Greenway. So you do have budget already for that, so that could potentially be worked into some of that as well.
So you know how like the last couple of years, we've been doing this, like regular zoning and build like zoning code update. And it was starting, I was like every other meeting, I was like, oh, and Valerie, here's another one, and so
Right.
at
We
some
have a
point, she made me stop and we put all that stuff into the comp plan and it gets discussed in the broader group. And some of that has made its way into the comprehensive plan. And then some of that will just get pushed onto this.
Yes.
There's some obvious zoning code changes that have to do with like some of the EI districts that we've been talking about, but then there's a number of other things that are specific to points in the comprehensive plan that would change, how a board reviews a thing or how, two boards interact or that kind of change. So that's why we haven't seen those for the past 6-8 months. Like they
Yeah.
used to be kind of almost every
And
month.
they're gonna
we
be
would have a
coming
new-
pretty.
Yeah,
So
we-
now I'm on hold.
It's not as efficient to do this on an ad hoc basis, so we both do have lists of code changes, not only the zoning code, but other areas of the code. So we do keep a rolling list of those, and we do anticipate that the comp plan will point out recommended areas for you to consider, and then we'll take it from there.
But for the three of you who are here now this year, there was a long period in which you sort of waited years and then you did a lot of zoning code changes at once. And that wasn't really serving us well. And so we started to think of it as an ongoing rolling process that we did regularly. We didn't have someone like Valerie who we could go to every so often and have them craft some new portion of the zoning code or modify one. But we do, and I think it's good for us to not wait 10 years between changes if we see something not working well. So
Absolutely.
we do want to keep not obviously, monthly, but whatever, every
Like
couple
the-
times a year.
The consolidation of the planning board with the AHRB was a key element to
Yeah.
help streamline, and also tightening up some definitions to make it more user-friendly for the public in terms of what permits are required for what, and also working with the building department has been very effective in that there's an intake process now, and everything starts with the same form. And then it moves from there through, I've been going to the agenda meetings with your consultants and the planning board, for the planning board agendas. And that's very helpful too, because you get ideas. We keep seeing this on a regular basis. Why don't we put this on the list? So it's sort of a running list.
Right, so all that will be coming back shortly
Yeah.
we're planning to have the draft comprehensive plan out within like the next couple months. And then shortly after that, we'll start with the zoning, we're starting to compile the lists for all the zoning units.
And in case you were wondering, the steep slopes will be back.
Yes,
Yes, but wait, there's
Caitlin,
more.
Can't wait.
And coverage and building coverage and.
Got my calculator out. I'm very sure.
Right.
Watch out.
It's a sliding scale, Jessica. Oh, yeah, I can't figure it out.
So I guess just sorry, really quick process wise. So like, for example, at NICOM last week, we heard a bunch of really cool ideas that folks have been using in other municipalities to drive towards some of the outcomes that we've been talking about wanting to see. Do I just write those in an email and send them to someone, or should I
Why
wait
don't you
to
do
see
that?
the draft? Or
No, you should, if you heard some interesting things at NICOM, those are always very helpful
Yes.
for us in terms of focus and direction and prioritization. Absolutely.
All right, liaison reports. Who wants to start? Go.
Okay, I got. Finally met with the
Thank you, Valerie.
Uh-huh. Thank you, Valerie.
Yeah,
You're right.
I actually brought my son in with me, so they actually, there was a question about a new law that they want to send a law to the state for. They're waiting to hear back from the state about the new law regarding the tree.
Oh, maybe Liz knows what's
Liz, do you know?
the most recent local law, tree
Local for the
preservation.
tree yeah.
No, not off the top.
Okay,
You don't know if you've received it back from the filing receipt, with the Secretary of State?
Of what?
The local law that changed, remember the night we went through and we made the revisions
The
in
tree
terms
falls
of
or
the
gets taken
tree?
down.
If the tree falls on the neighbor's house, can you pick it up without a permit?
Yes, I'm sure we've received that.
Yes.
Oh,
So
it's-
it's been adopted, it's
Been ad-
effective immediately and Liz is really good about sending it up to the Department of State, so yeah, it's.
So the building department would be implementing the new rules.
Okay, I will let them
As
know.
of whenever that came in, probably a
Great.
few weeks ago.
Oh, great, great, great. Okay, let's see. Then, actually get back, I need to pull up my traffic.
Forward traffic.
Oh, traffic, I'll save that one. If anybody else wants to jump.
Yeah, I was
Alright,
gonna
go.
say, while he's pulling that up, so I mentioned that we had a meeting at the last trustee meeting that, I met with the downtown committee. I did get some feedback on the goals and priorities. Someone on the committee had given some red lines, basically saying, in this section where we talk about the, improving the downtown and downtown revitalization. This person suggested adding sidewalk improvements, better pedestrian lighting. I don't know how much detail we wanna go into. I think we all know that those are part of our goals, but it's not explicitly stated here. And so, I think some of the bullets under the goals are specific and some are more general.
Yeah.
So like it calls out, this is really more on the traffic side, but it calls out traffic improvements on the Ashford study, but like there's other traffic improvements that maybe could be mentioned too. So I just think, I can pass this along, but I think it's from the downtown committee, some of the more explicit
They like to.
improvements that they want to see.
Other Rob,
Yes.
traffic committee. Rob.
I think the general edit to that would be traffic improvements as they relate to making it easier to
Yeah.
in relation to economic development, and then it can just be more of a blanket statement anyway.
And something else that was brought up too was how to incentivize better maintenance of buildings, particularly in the downtown, and enforce code violations in a stronger way. So I don't know if that's something that we wanted to add to the goals. It's something that we certainly have talked about.
Yeah,
in the
I
committee
think we've
minutes.
talked about it and it probably should have been in there because we talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
So. Right, Jess? Yes. Okay.
And a bunch of the things I was just referencing in our last discussion point are on those topics, so that can be, all go together.
Back to traffic.
Yeah, traffic, okay, we've got it broken down to concrete, steel and plastic stuff, program stuff, code stuff. So concrete, so we wanna, so they wanna look into kind of increasing more bike racks, placements, spot redesigns, such as one of they're talking about center bollards on Lawrence streets, also discussion about Livingston and also Warburton traffic lights about bollards. Want to increase more sidewalks and bike boulevards along kind of Washington Avenue. A big goal, which we discussed last workshop, was also our bike share program. So Rob Barron has been working on getting more information. And he actually told me that he's spoken with Children's Village and they may be interested in getting a hub as well, placed. Another, with Complete Streets, they want to work with the DPW and village administrator about getting, about improvements on as needed routine maintenance for stuff like repaving, curb reconstruction. Also want to discuss a speed hump policy. And that's
For
actually.
traffic calming of some measure, is it specifically speed?
Specifically speed.
Speed hump, yeah,
Any locations, or they just want to public globally?
globally right now.
I can tell they've been working for quite a long time on a policy document that is not specific to where we need them, but but more of a process for thinking about them rather than making it, you know, as it has been one-off requests, but really to think about like what our village policy should be about in terms of like, you know, vetting, testing with temporary speed humps, and then being able with data to make the decision on whether there's a reason to
Make it
pour them in concrete. So it's much more policy than it is pinpoints.
Cause I think I wanna make sure that cause I know a lot of those things we've been talking about for a long time, or they've been proposing for a long time, and I want to make sure that we are strategic in what we try and do this year. That's not all of them. And how it relates to the things that we're trying to accomplish globally for the village, not villagely, not globally, villagely. So can you just send that list over that they have and,
Over to you? Or-
yeah.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things in there. And like, if one of the things we're talking
2027.
about is traffic oriented, like trying to improve the flow of traffic as a downtown revitalization issue and like transversing the village, if one of the ways that we do that is through the bike share program, then that would be a key thing to focus on this year. But if it's not, you know, I just want it to all make sense within each other and not, you know, be just initiatives in silos. So I want to make sure we're doing it for the right reasons at the right time. Because there's not all the time in the day to do all these things. But, all right, that's it from traffic for now.
That's it from traffic.
Anybody else have anything from theirs that relates to?
Yeah, I'll be
Our
really,
goals and
I'll be really quick, because I really want to hear the affordable housing update. Spent a lot of time at the January meeting with Sustainable. They were doing their goal planning and we for the year, and we talked about overlaying the goals that we provided. And it's almost everything they're doing is fits under one goal or another of ours. For energy efficiency, sustainability, continuing the climate smart, getting more NYSERDA grant, like all of these things kind of play in. So there's not really an additional list of things that they can do, because they're sort of what they're configured to do fits very well under that.
Right.
For the CAB, we haven't actually had the meeting that we're gonna talk about the goals, so that's coming up in a week or so. So I'll get back to you on that, but the CAB did just want me to briefly mention that in the middle of January, they had an event in cooperation with Groundwork Hudson Valley, which was Groundwork Hudson Valley or ground. There's so many different ways to talk about groundwork. That was 35 volunteers helping to clear footpaths between the Hastings Trailways and Rivertown Square to increase connectivity in the village. And that will come up again in the grant that we were talking about for potentially buying conservation land. So more on the goals to come, but just wanted to mention that they had that very successful event.
Great.
The 19 Livingston, which is the property that came before us as a joint meeting with the planning board 2 or 3 months ago, came back to the planning board last week. If you remember, when we met with them.
The black box.
Yes, I do remember that. There was an area on the northwest corner of the property that had fill from 50 years ago. That fill is not terribly stable, not a good place to put a building. It is okay for things like parking lots, but not okay for things that are heavy, like structures. We wanted a clear definition of where that area started and ended. And the reason we wanted that is we wanted the buildings to get pushed farther north and open up a view between the property line and the southern end of the buildings. The applicant did some, borings, submitted a report to Anthony Oliveri, and it turns out it's sort of a gray area. It's not
black.
it's not a black box.
No.
It's like a question of degree, right? The further north you get, the worse the soils get, the more difficult it is to achieve the project. The longer it will take, the more it will cost, the less likely to succeed. So we are not going to have the sort of clear definition that we were hoping. And maybe that was our expectations were misaligned, or they kind of gave us the wrong impression about what they could determine and not determine. The planning board is at a little bit of an impasse. Some of their members would like to see a broader, wider view. It seems like the application is relatively modest in scale compared to what it was many years ago and compared to what the site would allow. So I suggested that they come back to us, they present what they have, with maybe an option or two, and we would provide some direction so that the planning board could move forward, because they're a little stuck at the.
They're stymied. You had charged, at your joint meeting, you had charged them to prepare and present to the planning board, the best possible way to increase those sightlines. And, the applicant has brought back, a layout, and before they spend the money to complete their application in terms of the mandatory submissions and stormwater and structural engineering and all of those things, they just kind of want to get ahead, Bob, that you agree this is the appropriate, best possible layout in terms of the sightlines.
Okay.
So I think we are able to do that on the 24th, or do we not, do we have to?
I think we just need to check with them. I don't think we've checked with the
Check.
planning board. But,
Check with Dan to see if it's,
Yeah.
if it's right for, I don't know.
I
it's
mean,
not-
we're willing to do it.
I
But
think they will, I think we should let them know as soon as possible so that their members can, find the time in their schedule.
And Sarah just would need to file, Sarah being the assistant in the building department, she would need to file an updated meeting notice, because it is a regular meeting of yours, but it is an odd night for them to be meeting. So it needs to meet open meetings law and requirements for not publication, but just as a meeting notice to be distributed and posted and placed in the appropriate location. So I know the planning board was anxious to get you with a presentation from the applicant. So it seemed like everybody was willing to make the time to do that.
okay, we'll do that soon.
Affordable Housing Task Force, this is a little bit of, maybe a little bit of a letdown for you, Matt. We did meet with our partner in the project, Kearney Development, and they gave us since the time of when we started the project to now, which we expected, funding sources change. As you can imagine, federal funding is less available, but state and county funding may be picking up some of the slack. One of the important funding sources wants or is available at above 50 units. What we are interested in determining is whether that constitutes everything together, our 3 sites that we have. In which case, that's very close to what we originally envisioned and have been talking about for, over a year now. So that I think has to get determined. Is really in Kearney's hands to research that question some more, and come back to the board with options for what the zoning would require to build on that site. How many parking spaces will be allocated for the residents versus,
Shared
the new building residents versus the Dobbs residents in general. We will need to consider how I'm not sure what the term is for like overlap parking scheduling.
Oh, right, yeah.
But there's, like people who commute, get in their car and leave in the morning are not the same people who may need to go to the hardware store at 2 PM. So there's some overlap, and I think that is something that we all need to think about, because it's gonna play into how this project develops. So, it's really in the developer's hands at the moment to give us some alternatives.
Is there a timeline?
There is, because again, this is another scenario where they're looking to enter into a contract, but unless and until these very essential questions. The most important being the zoning, because that has to come before you. And second of all is for clarification on whether the project is all three properties or whether a project is 99 Cedar. And then a different source of funding will be used for
No,
the other.
understood, but is there a timeline in which they
Yeah,
intend to be able to answer those questions?
Those questions have to be reiterated, and Valerie and I worked on the language for that reiteration today, and I'll be sending that out tomorrow, so I'll have a better answer for you. I know they are anxious. It took a while for me to get a sample contract. I have received it. I do not want to spend the time, though, it would take to review that and revise that and amend that until you're sure
Right.
of these
Yeah, that's
two
fine.
very essential issues.
Yeah,
We have been pressuring them to move ahead. There may be good reason that they don't have an answer because they're not getting one from further up the
Right.
line. But we don't have a
that
deadline.
wasn't a question meant to put pressure on, just a question for information.
No,
Yes.
You know, when we're gonna.
we're
Yeah.
all sort of chomping at the bit to get to this because that proposal and its alternatives have to come back to us so that we can actually discuss them as a real proposal, the thing we've been trying to do for a while now. And make a decision so that they can start developing that, create
keep
public outreach, program.
But they do need a contract in place in order to start the public outreach, in order to
course.
start
Yeah,
the
yeah.
development and the design, so.
Donna, Jess, do either of you want to, we only have time for one of you, so who wants to give any kind of update? Donna?
Sure. I mean, I have a list from all of my committees and boards, but just to highlight maybe just the library board for now. Communication seems to be a thread through a lot of our boards, like how do we better communicate? And actually they said we are missing communication with many village residents. And Linda proposed to develop a template for everyone to put in their e-newsletter that asks people to select other email lists they want to join, which I thought was a great suggestion. And just going down the line on a couple of highlights. On technology, they want to be included in the cloud sharing and storage and AI. And actually, Frank Vissard, who is new on the board, is an AI expert. So he might be somebody we could take, he's written books on it as well. So he
Wow.
might be somebody we could tap into not only for the library board, but across village needs. Village infrastructure. They said also they'd like to set clear guidelines for responsibility of the library building as a whole. They feel it's been unclear for many years as to who is responsible for what. Traffic improvements, I think that's a thread that runs through a lot of boards, and consider library parking issues. And if we do get a shuttle bus, to make sure the library is one of the stops that goes along. Just to give a highlight of last night on the nominated committee, we interviewed great candidates that, will fit into not only the volunteer ambulance corps, but we have places for them around that we can use, between fundraising, between healthcare leaders and management leaders. I mean, it was very impressive, Christy. Wasn't that unbelievable?
Yeah, we were all glowing.
Glowing. I love the nominating committee because of that. We get to meet so many amazing village residents. So, and we had a lot of great ideas with that, and which I've discussed previously about updating the websites and making it easy to volunteer. And to also, it showed putting one specific note into the mayor's newsletter. I think we have 8 or 9 applicants in a couple of weeks. So that's something we will highlight. Right now, we don't have that many openings on our committees, which is good. But when we do, and we do have new committees like the Public Arts Committee and, whatever. I think I'm timed out now, 7:31. But just a few highlights.
Jess, we'll come back to you during the announcements at the very end, so we'll hold tight. Okay. Lori Lee, if we want to go into executive session, should we close this one, open the next one and then go, or can we go from here and then wait to open? What would you recommend?
Either way can be accomplished, but it might be easier for you to close this one. And then, this is an executive session. So it would need to be from within the scope of
From within that.
yeah.
Okay, so is there a motion to close the workshop meeting? Trustee Rosenberg, second, trustee Asuma, all in favor?